Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Cropper here. An update for the week ending on Halloween Day, October 2008. Daniel, at the end of his first full week, is doing much better than he was at the beginning. When we do Quiz for Cash, I go around and ask each kid in turn a question on their level and give them payment according to their performance on that question, and they do not get a payment in owl or cash if they do not answer the question correctly. This is just quiz and review. I don't teach by paying them cash. I review by paying them cash if they can answer me questions or find it in their notes. Daniel, after 3 days, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, he was just poverty-stricken when it came to the auctions we do. He had no owlers, and he complained to me. At the end of the third day, we did an auction. Wednesday, right before we all went home, right before school ended, we did an auction, and he wasn't able to buy anything. He couldn't afford it. He got outbid, so he's got like 120 owlers or something, and other people buy it. I only auction off a certain amount. There's 5 kids, so I'll auction off like 1 soda and 2 candies at the end of the day or something like that. Little baby candy bars, and so he complained to me that he raised his hand. He said, "I never get to buy anything. I haven't bought anything yet, and this is all I have." So I took about 3 minutes, stopped right there, and I just said, "Daniel, every single time I ask you a question, you tell me you don't know the answer. Every time when we're doing the lesson, every time that I look at you and ask you to tell me what's going on the board, you don't know. So you don't pay attention to me when I'm talking. You don't answer the questions. You don't write anything down in your notes when I ask you to. So Cumin answers all the questions, and Cumin gets all the hours." And I said it just a little more long-winded and a little less brutal than that. But basically, I said, if you would pay attention and listen, you would get the hours. And it's not like his head's going to fall off if he learns something. That's what all of them, their attitude for all of them was when they first came, except for Cumin. But for the other 4, their attitude was, "I can't learn anything, my head will fall off." They're always against learning something new. Cumin even has problems with it, but not as bad as all the other 4. But Daniel is the most resistant to it still. However, that was Wednesday. Thursday, he stayed after school. We had after-school arts and crafts, and they were building stuff out of Construx, old Fisher-Price toys with linking parts, and you can build different things. They even have motors and machines. It's great. Building some things out of those, and Daniel was not interested in that. He wanted me to teach him something and pay him hours for it. So for like 30 or 45 minutes, me and Daniel worked on getting him up to speed in math, and then his brother came over, his younger brother came over, because Daniel was catching up to where Brandon was at, and Brandon was hearing this being talked about between me and Daniel, what we were doing. So Brandon comes over and he says, "Give me something really hard that Daniel has never tried yet." So I taught Brandon how to multiply double digits, and 15 or 20 minute lesson there while I was working with Daniel on different times tables and stuff. So he, at first I thought that's just kind of not fair. If he's not interested, then he's not interested. You can't coerce the kid to be interested, can you? Either you can get him interested with the material, or you can't. Is there another way to get him interested in the material? Given that the material is interesting, given that it's historically important, given that it has hierarchical value and he's going to need to know these things if he's going to be a thinking adult, given that I value this information and I know it's important, given that, is there a back door through which I can go to get the kid to be open to absorbing the information? And indeed, I found a back door with Daniel. Brandon was already there, but when he saw Daniel stepping up, Brandon came over and said, "Teach me a new concept that my older brother doesn't know." So the 2 slower students motivated now, more than they were before. Daniel especially is coming around more, paying attention, writing things down. He's able to answer a few questions now and then. And I think it's not just, I mean, the kids aren't just learning information, are they? They are learning how to think. So when they first started here, the first students first came and we first started going over material, it's not familiar to them. They're not familiar with this method of taking 2 or 3 things, holding them in your mind, and then coming to a conclusion about them, tying them together. It's not familiar territory. Now that is what we do in every single subject, every single day of the week. That is not true at the public schools. They never do that. So scattered. They'll give you 1 concrete, then you're done. Go to recess. 1 or 2 more concretes, not related. After recess, then we go to lunch. So, or floating abstractions. They'll give you abstractions that can't be concretized. So the kids are used to just zoning out and just bumping by as best they can. Now they're actually learning the skill of thinking, of saying premise 1, premise 2, conclusion. I don't have to outline it like that. Later on, when they're 12 or 13 and I want to outline it like that and say, this is what we call a premise, this is the conclusion. Later on, I'll just click into place form. They'll automatically be able to grasp formal logic and logic as such because they have thinking skills already. So it's just like, oh, so this is a formalized manner of how I think. For most people, they are not logical to begin with, so to tell them that there's a thing called logic that has all the rules to think by, they just dismiss it completely. Like Randy Heltzerman, who says that the laws of logic are no more binding than traffic laws or something silly like that. Because someone who doesn't know how to think would never recognize the value of putting thinking down in ordered steps. These children are going to learn how to think, and they're going to be able to put thinking down in ordered steps at some point. It's going to be meaningful to them right off the bat, although we're not introducing them to formal logic yet. These kids are learning how to think, so when the day comes, setting it down in a formalized set will just be obvious. Brandon's even stepping up the same way that Caden steps up when Cumin comes around threatening his territory. And just a quick example of learning to think, I have on the board I'll put notes that they have to copy, and there will be a little chain of logic. Like, for example, the title is The First Cities. Point number 1, here's from Cumin's notes. Point 1, agriculture. Little dash. Cumin insisted a colon would be better than a dash. Agriculture, little dash, farming. That's point 1. That's all they have to write in their notes. And then we talk about that. Then point 2, first cities were always on rivers. And point 3, laws equal writing. And then I unpack that for them over like an hour-long period. Then in review and stuff, sometimes I'll put it up there and they have to fill in the blanks, and I'll ask them one by one, can you fill in the blank on this? I'll give them hints. Like it says, the first cities were always on, and I tell the kid he's clueless, and so I say, Daniel was this case. Cumin and Caden both wanted to answer, they knew it. But Daniel had no idea where the first cities were built. How would he know that? Because he'd written in his notes? That didn't help. Because he'd listened to my lecture? That didn't help either. But once I picked his brain a little bit, he realized, oh my goodness, there is information in there. I did hear Mr. Cropper say things. I did write something down in my notes. And it's like he's clueless of how to initiate that, but maybe with practice, like riding a bicycle, he'll be able to do that. That is, think. So I say, they were the first cities. Cities are lots and lots of people together. Before the first cities, they only had a few people. Hunters and gatherers who ate berries and stuff. So, to get a whole bunch of people together that can't just gather berries, where did they have to build the first cities? Oh, he remembers. Oh, let's see. Farming water. And that was his answer. Water. And I said, right, they had to build them next to water, but not just any water. They couldn't build them next to the ocean with salty water. Oh, next to River.